Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into something pretty serious, a topic one whistleblower calls a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, it's quite the claim.
We're talking about massive property tax fraud allegations. This comes from Mitch Vexler, and he's saying home appraisers might be inflating property values, to push taxes higher.
And it's not just small amounts we're talking about.
No, exactly. Vexler links this to trillions in school bond debt, potentially leaving homeowners with huge tax bills, like $33,000 or even more. The scale, he says, could even, threaten the whole financial system. Okay, let's unpack this.
What's fascinating here is just the sheer gravity of it all. Mitch Vexler's been digging into this for years. He calls it a huge spider web of alleged fraud.
A spider web, wow.
Yeah, and he traces it all the way back to 2016. And, it's not over. New information is still coming out, even in the last week or so. It's very much an ongoing thing.
So who is Mitch Vexler? Where's he coming from with this?
Well, he's got the background.
Right, he's not just some random person. He's got over 35 years in real estate development, plus expertise in things like statistical probability, quantitative finance. Sounds pretty sharp.
Definitely.
And he apparently started looking into certified tax rules way back in 2017. He saw some problems, anomalies, and that led to lawsuits.
Multiple lawsuits.
And his core argument, the constitutional one, that's pretty fundamental, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's saying the 16th Amendment lets the government tax income, right?
Right, income.
But not property itself, especially not unrealized gains. Like the value of your house went up by on paper, but you haven't sold it, so you haven't actually made that money yet.
Exactly. It's not realized cash profit.
So are you telling me that I'm not supposed to be paying the taxes on my home, the property taxes? Is that what he's saying?
Well, that's the crux of his constitutional challenge. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Vexler claims it goes way beyond just the 16th Amendment. He's talking violations of the 1st, 5th, and 14th Amendments, too. Due process issues, basically arguing the system strips property owners of their rights.
So multiple constitutional angles.
Yeah.
Okay.
And his main point is that market value, being an unrealized gain, just doesn't have a legal pathway for taxation under the U.S. Constitution. But it's not just federal.
What about at the state level, like Texas you mentioned?
Right. He points to the Texas Constitution, too, specifically the Uniform and Equal Clause that demands properties of similar value get taxed equally.
Okay, that makes sense.
And crucially, if there is a difference in valuation for similar properties, the law says they must use the lower value for tax purposes.
A lower value. Got it.
And then there are the professional standards, USPAP, the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice. These are supposed to ensure appraisals are fair, objective, accurate.
Right, the rules appraisers are meant to follow.
Exactly. And Vexler claims these standards are just systematically ignored, which makes a lot of property appraisal potentially legally unsound.
Wow. Okay, those constitutional arguments are huge. But let's get practical. How does this alleged fraud actually happen? You mentioned property cards. Something about a discovery 2 weeks ago.
Yes. That's key to understanding the how. These property cards, they're like the file on your house, right? They list its characteristics.
Okay.
Vexler's team claims they found evidence that the effective age of a property can be easily manipulated on these cards.
Effective age. What does that mean exactly?
It's sort of like the condition age versus the actual chronological age. A well-maintained older home might have a younger effective age, but Vexler says this can be changed artificially.
So changing that number makes the house seem newer or in better shape than it is.
Precisely. And that artificially inflates its assessed value, often without the homeowner having a clue, which means higher taxes.
Sneaky.
Yeah.
And it all seems to feed into funding things we generally support, right? Like schools, local services. Sounded like a good idea.
Well, that's the narrative Vexler challenges. He claims what maybe started as an honorable thought has become poisonous. It's leading to a crisis of confidence, as he puts it.
And you mentioned schools are a big part of this. Like 83% of the bonds raised from these taxes go to school districts?
That's Vexler's number, yeah. And he really debunks the whole doing it for the children line.
How so?
He argues that many districts are raising bonds today just to pay off bonds they issued, say, 10 years ago.
So borrowing more to pay old debts.
Exactly, which, he states, fits the definition of a Ponzi scheme. He even did some math suggesting that if Texas repealed property taxes, the money saved could feed 4 million people.
Wow. So he's saying the school funding argument is just propaganda.
Pure, utter propaganda are his words. He claims it's really about systemic overvaluation. that 50 to 80% of current market value is inflated in these assessments.
Can you give some examples? Those Texas towns you mentioned.
Sure. The numbers are pretty stark. Salina, Texas, small town, only about 8,300 people, but they approved a $2.3 billion bond.
Billion. With a B?
Yep. Then there's Godley, Texas. He alleges $120,000 in this kind of school bond debt per house, and the average house there is only worth about $160,000.
So the debt is almost as much as the house value.
Almost. And Argyle, Texas is even worse, according to his figures. $343,000 in alleged fraudulent debt per house on an average home value of $450,000.
That's unsustainable.
That's exactly his point. The math just doesn't work. He looks at average employee cash flow in Texas, about $2,800 a year per person, maybe $42 billion total. That can only cover maybe 7.5% of the $660 billion in this alleged fraudulent school debt just in Texas.
And people are already stretched thin.
Right. National average credit card debt is around $6,700. He says mom and pop are living off of credit cards. Paying these inflated taxes becomes impossible. And it's not just Texas. He points to places like Paul, California, facing nearly $1 billion in repayments for only $150 million borrowed.
Okay, this raises an important question. If people can't pay, who does?
Well, that's where it gets really messy.
Vexler's filed with the SEC, the FBI, DOJ, even the Postal Service for mail fraud, right? What's the thinking there? Does he expect them to step in?
He's definitely putting the pressure on. The mail fraud angle is interesting. $2,000 penalty per envelope, potential jail time. It suggests he sees this as deliberate criminal action.
And is this just a Texas thing, or are we talking nationwide?
Oh, it's absolutely nationwide, according to Vexler. He says there are no states that escape this, though some are worse than others. He even claims there are seminars.
Seminars.
Yeah, where chief appraisers and school superintendents apparently go to learn from each other, literally teaching each other to be criminals, is how he put it, sharing these alleged fraudulent techniques.
That's a heavy accusation.
It is. He describes this division of responsibility. School districts allegedly commit accounting fraud, setting budgets they need met. Then the chief appraisers at the central appraisal districts, the CADs, are sort of controlled by the districts to hit those numbers.
So the appraisers aren't independent.
He claims they're effectively controlled, creating this. Well, he calls it a cacophony of morons breaking federal law. He also mentions how hard it is to track the actual bond numbers, the QIPs. He cited the Itasca School District allegedly taking documents offline when people started asking questions.
So obscuring the evidence.
Yeah.
And what are the total numbers we're looking at nationally?
The numbers are just mind-boggling. Vexler's conservative estimate is $5.1 trillion in fraudulent bond face value across the U.S.
5.1 trillion.
Trillion. And other estimates go as high as $17 trillion because of all the off-balance sheet stuff like those 313 agreements in Texas, hidden investment pools, things that aren't easily tracked.
That's bigger than the 2008 crisis, isn't it?
He compares it to Margin Call, the movie about 2008, but says this is much worse because it's not just mortgages this time. It hits the value of bonds that banks hold. He claims they might only be worth 40 cents on the dollar compared to face value because of this school debt issue.
And the federal government is involved, too.
Yep.
Texas schools alone get $165 billion from the federal general fund. So federal taxpayer money is getting mixed into what he calls a scam of biblical proportions. It touches everything.
Is it just the U.S.?
Apparently not. Vexler points to Canada, claims it's actually in worse shape per person.
Really? Why?
He talks about the compound cumulative effect of the fraud there, plus a legal system where challenging this stuff takes forever, like a 10-year babble.
Right.
He mentions Toronto condos tiny, like 480 CQ heat, but costing a fortune and median income just not keeping up with rising taxes. Same underlying problem.
It's almost too much to wrap your head around. The scope, the numbers. I mean, how much time do you think we have before this really, the wheels come off?
Yeah, before it blows up.
Vexler talks about controlled demolition versus straight-up demolition. What does that mean?
Well, Vexler's assessment is pretty blunt. He says the system is bankrupt today. Not tomorrow, not next year, now.
Bankrupt now. Yeah. Leading to what he calls bankrupt, raised to an exponent. It's already broken. And he points out the Fed's dilemma. If they print money to bail out states like Texas...
Climb our republic inflation, right?
Exactly. Hyperinflation. Plus, you'd be sanctioning moral hazard, basically rewarding a broken, fraudulent system. His view is stark. Humpty Dumpty can't be put back together again.
So what does that mean for people? for homeowners.
The impact could be devastating. He estimates 4 million houses in Texas alone and maybe 42 million across the U.S. That's nearly 38% of households are in harm's way of bankruptcy and or losing the roof over their head.
42 million homes.
Because, he says flat out, the money to pay these bonds doesn't exist. It's based on inflated values that aren't real.
So what happens? Default.
That's the default scenario, yeah. Wiping out that $5.1 trillion or more in bonds through bankruptcy, investors, underwriters, they lose big time.
And it wouldn't stop there.
No, the ripples would go far beyond that. Think about Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. They hold or back many mortgages based on these potentially fraudulent, inflated values. If those values collapse, it hits the entire housing finance system.
Okay. This is a lot. So let's bring it back to the listener. What should you be doing right now? I mean, if you're thinking of buying a house, especially for the first time, should you just rent for now? Wait this out.
It's a tough question.
So what does this all mean for us, practically speaking?
Vexler does advise patience on the home buying front. He suggests people will be able to buy a house, just have some patience. He gave that Houston example, right? A house dropping from $126 a square foot down to $92 in just 7 months.
Because the market might be starting to correct.
Potentially, yeah. Markets are definitely shifting. But more importantly, he wants to empower people with information.
Wow.
He says, go online. Check your local school district's bond debt. That info should be public. Then do some rough math. Divide that debt by the number of houses in your district.
See the debt burden per home.
Exactly. Like in Godly, Texas, if a $160,000 house has $120,000 of this alleged debt attached, its real value is closer to $40,000. Understanding that helps you see the situation clearly.
So knowledge is power here.
Absolutely. The goal, he says, is to restore their balance sheet for individuals and communities and get these property taxes off the back of mom and pop.
Okay. Any specific financial advice he gives given this potential instability?
He does offer some thoughts. If you have significant cash saved up, like more than a basic 3-month emergency fund, he cautions against keeping it all in the bank.
Why? Worried about bank failures.
He seems to be. He mentioned a number like 600 out of 4,700 banks may not exist very shortly. That's his assessment of the risk.
So where should people put money instead?
He's a strong advocate for precious metals, gold, silver. Historically, he says, they hold value, act as a hedge against currency losing purchasing power, like in that Weimar Republic scenario. He mentioned an 8% historical pace for metals.
Okay, metals. Anything else?
Yeah, he also suggests looking at cash-flowing businesses that don't have debt, or real estate, but only if you can own it outright with no debt attached.
So hard assets, basically.
Seems to be the theme. And he also mentioned learning to trade, but carefully. Not jumping in blindly, but understanding markets as a skill.
But the main message seems to be, don't just sit back.
Definitely not. He warns against apathy. Apathy is a killer, he says. He believes this whole situation developed because people, officials, everyone were just apathetic and didn't pay close enough attention.
And the math just doesn't lie, eventually.
That's his final point. The math supersedes the laws. You can't ignore it forever. You can't get blood out of a stone. The system, as he describes it, is mathematically impossible to sustain.
We've covered so much ground today.
Yeah.
And honestly, the gravity of these claims from Mitch Vexler it's really staggering. You have to acknowledge his dedication, his focus on protecting mom and pop.
Yeah, it's clearly a driving force for him.
And those filings he made, covering over 500,000 property accounts just in Denton County, Texas. That really shows this is about average homeowners, not just big corporations.
It's focused on individuals.
So the takeaway for you, the listener, really seems to be stay informed, look into your own local school district debt, understand what's happening where you live.
And maybe leave you with this final thought from Vexler's perspective. This problem, this compound cumulative fraud, it didn't happen overnight. It's been building for generations.
Right.
And if the big players, the SEC, FBI, DOJ, the Fed, if they don't step in for that controlled demolition he talks about, well, his words were, heaven help all of us.
A stark warning.
So the question he really leaves for you is, how much equity might have already been stripped from your property because of these practices? And what are you going to do with that knowledge now to understand your own situation and protect your financial future?